Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rethink Life. This is our new season, and we're here, and we are going to be talking about Skip-Bo and science. So, as we get going, and yes, I am talking about that card game, Skip-Bo. What does it have to do with metaphysical science, right? But as Mom was visiting in Minnesota for the last month, and we were playing a lot of Skip-Bo, it turns out that we had this sort of insight, and we said, we're going to be talking about that. So we'll explain more, and it'll all unravel as we come along, as we look at it. But Skip-Bo is a new game to Mom, and we started playing when she got here. So you want to say a little bit about your experience with Skip-Bo, and then we're going to get right into it. But go ahead.
Yeah, Skip-Bo's a fun game. And what I noticed was that I lost every time we played. And so I kept learning the rules, but I'm very, in everyday living, I'm kind of neat and tidy kind of person. Skip-Bo has lots of stuff laying out on the table in front of you, and you're supposed to concentrate on one objective. And I kept getting lost in all the mess that was on the table. And finally, Kim explained that the only thing on that table that was of any importance at all was this little stack of cards. When I got rid of that, I won. Didn't matter about the mess. All I had to do was think about that. So I got to thinking about it, and I said, it's a lot like science.
Right. Let me explain. Wait. Let me explain why there's a mess. So there's 4 discard piles. You have your stack, and there's 4 discard piles. And you keep stacking them up. You can only play the top one. So people stack them, and they end up being these 4 rows of discards so you can see what you have.
You have to discard something every single time.
Right. And you can either play on these 4 stacks that help you get rid of your cards, or you have to discard, right? So that's the way it rolls. So Mom was getting this messy discard, and it was driving her nuts. So she kept trying to empty out her discards, and she wasn't paying at all any attention to the stack, which is the whole objective. So go ahead, Mom.
So anyway, I was paralleling that when I got to thinking about it after Kim scolded me a few thousand times, and I got to thinking about it. I said, it's a lot like practicing science. We get caught up in our everyday stuff and doing what we always do the way we like to do it. And something comes along that we call a problem, and we wonder why we can't get the problem to resolve itself. And so I got to looking at that, and I thought, what's the objective in practicing science? And I thought of these 2 things that we've been told our whole life. And one of them is from the Bible. It says, acknowledge the Lord in all thy ways, and he will direct thy path. Well, if I'm acknowledging the God idea in all my ways, I don't have time to fuss with Betty. And Betty is a detour. It's like the discard pile. Leave it alone. Nobody's paying attention to Betty. Nobody cares what happens to Betty. The important thing is that what's going on is divine being itself being. And then on you go. But what we do is say, well, all is infinite mind, and then we go on and fix dinner, and we take care of the family, and we run our errands, and we go to work, and we do our usual thing, and we, how come I don't feel any better? Well, have we paid attention to our primary thing, the objective of science, which is to see that there is nothing outside of mind going on? It's just a picture. And the pictures don't count. That's the discard pile. So I have to pay attention to the facts. And I have to keep paying attention to the facts. And no matter what comes along, the only thing that's important in my every activity is the acknowledgement of a fact. Now, that's not hard. It's just that I get distracted with a discard pile. You know, Betty and her actions and all the junk that goes on. But if I don't get distracted and I stay with the facts, I'm a winner. It moves right along. Everything resolves itself, and on we go.
Right. And the thing that I'm reminded of is what we've talked about so many times about, oh, is that the dress God's wearing today? Yep. Is that the way it looks? And to all the circumstances, you know, I can say it may be the way it looks, but it's not the way it is. And so there's all these little phrases that I've got, but this was just so good because we played so much skip bow. I just got to tell you, I have played thousands of games of skip bow now in the last month. And Mom is actually pretty darn good at skip bow. But at any rate, so when we looked at it, we're like, oh my gosh. So now let me tell you what we have in store for you for this next set of live cast. The pamphlet that we're going to be working with, it's actually an address that Margaret Laird gave, is called What is the Idea? And it's a book, and we're working to get a version. We actually don't have any of these for you to buy. And I know me saying that, I want everybody to want to get their hands on it. But if you don't have it, you can't even buy it, right? What we're working on is getting a PDF version of this available on the website so that people can purchase it and download it, because we don't have any more printed versions.
We also may get some printed ones, but it takes a while.
Right, but that takes a while. So anyways, the whole thing is, what is the idea? Now, here's the thing, is like we get so caught up in the tradition or the recipe
details,
or the what we've always done. It's like if I ask you, if you drove to work every day, how do you get to work? Well, you usually take the exact same route every single day. If I asked you, when you take a shower, how do you get in the shower? Do you get in the same way every single time? You know, like either people get in and they go face first, right into the water, or you get in and you back into it. That's what I do, back into it. But do you always do it the same way? And we get in these ruts about what we do. And it's the same way that Mom was in a rut about how she played cards and looking at her hand and doing all that. And that was what was so interesting. So when you look at, well, what is the idea? And you stop getting so caught up in the details and the circumstances and the what you like and what you don't and the preferences in your routine, and you start looking at what is the idea. Because one of the things we've talked about so much is curiosity, is willingness. And it comes home in big ways with all of this. So we're going to be looking at what is the idea. And we have lots of fun things kind of set up here in ways that we're going to talk about it. One of which was skip bow. So that's what we're doing. And again, for those of you who are just joining us, we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science, established in 1959 as the Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. And our website is scientificmetaphysics.org. And you can support these live streams and all of this with a donation of $10. That would be much appreciated. At any rate, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in. Anything else you want to say about skip bow and anything like that before we jump right in?
Well, it was a great wake-up call for me, because you don't realize how caught up you are in the look of you and in the routine you've established for how to get things done every day. And I think that's why we generate what are called problems. They're wake-up calls. They're saying, hey, you're paying a lot of attention to the discard pile. You need to pay attention to what the objective is all about. Yeah. And the objective is that we live and move and have being mentally and always have. And when I can return myself to that I live and move and have being as consciousness, it's all mental. It's not the picture that it looks like. That's the way it looks, not the way it is. We've said that many times. But every time I forget that or lose sight of it, I generate for myself a reminder to get on the ball. It's called a problem.
Yep.
And all it's saying is, hey, what's the objective here?
Yeah. So let's look at some things. So God is a word, man is a word, good is a word, evil is a word. But what is the idea? The idea is the thing, the operational entity that's not only the source, but the principle that keeps all things going.
Mm-hmm.
Words signify that something is being, but the being, the idea, the function, the action is the thing. Being, performing, unfolding, operating, functioning, and experiencing as intuition and revelation is what being is. So that starts us off. Let's take a look at how we're going to explore this. So in the booklet, what is the idea? Right on page 1, Margaret Laird writes, I am life is both the why and the whence comes. The intuitive knowledge that life requires a principle or law to keep it going.
Yep.
Anything you want to say about that? Unpack that a little bit.
Well, I am is a phrase that means the God idea.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a term that means the God idea. So the God idea is the why and the whence comes. It's the intuitive knowledge. It's all the God idea. And so the God idea in action is man. And there you have it. One thing going on. The God man idea in action.
Yep.
Being itself being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Science and Health on page 136, starting on line 5, Mary Baker Eddy said he, talking about Jesus, claimed no intelligence, action, nor life separate from God.
Yeah, and that's a good sentence. So how are we acknowledging the life principle in all our ways? All of them. I don't do it because of all of the stuff I think. I don't do it when because of all the times I have. I don't do it where, thinking I get to choose a choice spot. All of that stuff that we have with the human living of ourselves doesn't have anything to do with anything. That's the discard pile. The objective is, what's the fact? What's going on here? What has it look like Betty's doing something? Guess what? You know, Shakespeare said there's a divinity that shapes our ends. We live and move and have being as mind. Well, mind action's all there is. And all it takes is the acknowledgement of that. And I'm right back to business as usual, only much improved. A lot of freedom.
Right. Right. And to leave the old for the new renders thought receptive to the advanced idea, gladness to leave the false landmarks, and joy to see them disappear. This disposition helps to precipitate the ultimate harmony. And those are all words of Mary Baker Eddy. And as you've said so many times, and as we've explored in these episodes, willingness to take a different view is what keeps you open.
Yep.
Now, in your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 23, you say scientific fact-finding with a non-visible realm, within a non-visible realm, provides new eyes for discovering the self beyond the observational or physical concept of self. This is indeed a new landscape for self-discovering.
Yep.
So unpack that a bit.
Well, I wrote a note there and said the mystical view, which is what people usually refer to any religious philosophy about anything. Mystical view regards consciousness as the primary reality, as the essence of the universe, the ground of all being and everything else. All forms of matter and all living things All of it. Manifestations of pure consciousness.
Yep. So when you look at what is the idea, what is the idea?
All is infinite mind, infinitely manifest, right here, right now.
So that's what is the idea? It's like when we start picking apart people's words and say, well, you said, are we being language conscious or are we being idea conscious? Because I think there's this thing about being language conscious would be focused on the circumstances and all that, because language is anything you can see, hear, feel, taste, touch, all of that shows up, circumstantial, all of those things. So I kind of had this thought about, what about, are you idea focused? Are you language focused? What language focused would be what you've been calling during this session, the discard pile.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
In Skipbo, that would be the discard pile.
Right.
Nothing to do with the objective.
Right. Okay. Now, also on page 1 of What is the Idea, Margaret Laird wrote, in the culture of science, the word God means conscious experience. The term man also means conscious experience or conscious identity. So then I will ask you, is God and man synonymous?
Not synonymous, but one.
Okay.
It's like you can't say, if you're talking about yourself, you can't say your foot and your hand are the same thing, but it's one being.
Okay.
So man is the action of the God idea. So it's all one thing going on, and one's man, one's God, and it's all one thing.
Yeah.
Can't have one without the other.
Right. And in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy on page 325, starting on line 32, wrote, a false sense of life, substance, and mind hides the divine possibilities and conceals scientific demonstration.
Yep.
So a false sense of life, would that be paying attention to the discard pile?
Yep.
So it would be getting all wrapped up in the circumstances and the things and stuff and the beliefs, in the judgments, in the opinions.
Yep.
And the substance, let's see, the false sense of life, substance, and mind. So thinking you're this two-legged animal walking around in a world among others hides the divine possibilities. The more you're strapped into, well, this is the way I do things, and this is the way I am, and up. You're hiding from yourself the divine possibilities and concealing demonstration of divinity.
Okay.
Anything else?
As you were reading that, there's another statement that Mrs. Eddy says, that our false sense of life produces the ills of which we complain.
Right. There we go. Right. So what are you complaining about? That's a great question. Start to ask yourself, I wonder, that's a false view of life.
We have that thing that should remind us that we're playing with the discard pile when we complain about anything. When we are complaining and bemoaning our situation, it's all tied up with something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
No wonder we get lost in the mire.
Yeah. All right. So, and in your book, A Mind is the Athlete, on page 25, you wrote, the student walks the path exploring what's possible when the physical evidence, that is, what you see, hear, and feel, is understood to be a mode of consciousness which does not exist external to mind.
Yeah, it doesn't even exist. We make it up as we go. Yeah. And Margaret used to say, you can't do anything about something you're making. You can just stop. But you can't fix it because it doesn't exist.
Right.
You just stop.
Right.
And what you do is look at the objective, which is, what is the fact? What's actually going on here? What has me exist in the first place?
Yeah.
Certainly not to straighten out the closet. Certainly not to scold the kids. Certainly not to fix dinner. But I do all those things.
Right.
But what has me exist? Just play with that for a while. And pretty soon you begin to see, well, life, well, what is life? That's another word for God. Well, paying attention, that's an intelligent function. That's another word for mind. God idea. Telling the truth, you got that one. Feeling, whole, intuition, revelation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We call that soul, God idea. All of the fact-finding stuff deals with facts. It doesn't deal with the look at all.
Mm-hmm.
So all the time we spend fussing about the way things look, or the way I wish they'd look, or a better way to have them look, is wasted effort because you've lost sight of the objective of what your presence is all about.
Yeah.
And your presence is all about beholding the facts of being. And that's called being yourself all the way. Yep.
All right. And now the third quote, also from page 1 of What is the Idea? And don't worry, we're not going to go sequentially through this thing because it would take forever. There are over 123 pages. So we're not going to be doing one page every episode. All right. Just letting you know. But also on page 1, Margaret Laird wrote, the experience of being the idea of the good as thinking, identifying good is what God is. That is, God idea experiencing constitutes man.
Yep.
Anything more on that?
Yeah, your declarations about God are not God. They're just words.
Are you talking about when people spout the Bible and all that stuff?
Yeah. Or all is infinite mind, it's infinite manifestation for God's all in all.
Right.
All words too.
Right.
Or all is infinite mind. God is love.
So the distinction
Divine love always has met and always will meet every human need.
Right. So what we're talking about is having words just be words, or being clear about the idea that gives rise to the words. Is that the key point here?
Well, Mrs. Laird, I actually picked this up in What is the Idea of the book. Mrs. Laird calls all of those things, all those wonderful words, she calls those the pill of formulated phrase.
The pill of formulated phrase?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
So that's the pill that you put, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, all is infinite mind, it's infinite manifestation. All is, I'm fine.
Guilty.
Yeah. That's called a formulated phrase. That's a pill.
Right. Well, because in a pill is because we have expectations that whatever the look is going to change out of me having said that.
Yep. So I'm the pill administering the pill.
Right. You're the pill of which you see.
It's fun to kind of make fun of all this stuff, but the truth of the matter is science is relatively very simple. It is an actual factual presence that each one is. It just isn't the way it looks.
Yeah.
And we keep buying the discard pile instead of looking at the objective, the fact. Oh, a fact is present when I show up.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste my time with the discard pile if I want to win the game,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. In Science and Health on page 324, starting on line 8, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, the body will reflect what governs it, whether it be truth or error. So if you buy the picture and you've got all your and all that, what's governing it is error.
Well,
Is that what that's basically what that's saying? Yeah.
Yeah. And the word error is like something's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, it's not wrong if you want to play the game in the discard pile.
Right. Right.
It just doesn't win the game.
Right. Not very fulfilling in the end.
Right.
All right. Okay, very cool. And if you guys have anything at all to say, you can type it into the comments or and all of that, and we'll see it. And we love the conversations, and we'll answer those too and bring them into the conversation if they happen while we're live.
Oh, and for heaven's sakes, let us know if you have no idea what we're talking about.
Right, exactly, because we're just having a great time. All right. So Mind is the Athlete, Mom. Your book on page 25, you wrote, "What is really causative? Perhaps treating the physical world as if it were causative is actually erroneous, though undistinguished as such."
Yep.
So really think about that. What do you have going on that you're treating as if it's causative and it's actually erroneous, although you haven't yet distinguished it as erroneous?
Yeah, you know what your clue will be that says, hey, you've gotten kind of off in the discard pile here. Your clue is that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have no positive results. And results is really a lousy way to say that. But you don't have an experience of yourself as being in charge. You kind of have an experience of things are kind of pushing you around. You know, the world is doing it to me. And that's actually an impossibility. It's like getting lost in the discard pile and not knowing where you are. But then I was lucky, you see, playing the game. Kim kept saying, Mom, the discard pile is not where you're playing the game. And I said, oh, yeah, I got it. So I'm back over here to paying attention. But it was really a good parallel. I hope you've had fun hearing about it because we had fun doing it.
Right. And I want to be clear, also in Mind is the Athlete, Mom, on page 26, you wrote, be clear that the fundamental causation, a function of consciousness or mind, is always active. And I'm reminded of, you can entertain your beliefs and your opinions and your judgment and all that stuff that we've just said is that we treat as causative, even though it's erroneous, just undistinguished as erroneous. And so we're off down that path. And I look at it like that's heading east. That's heading east. And all you have to do to be as far east as you can go is turn around. And you're literally as far east as you can go. So it's like what Mom said earlier is you can't fix it. You're making it. You can't fix it. You can't change it. You can't do all that, but you can stop. And you can acknowledge the facts present.
It's all it takes.
And it's that simple. Just turn around.
Have science for your vision.
That's right.
Yep.
So with that, I want to thank all of you and say welcome back. We're here. We're going to have some fun ones next time around. We're going to be looking at participation in life. So we'll be looking at that. We have a bunch of them already planned out. We spent the last month kind of looking at how we would go forward. And so we have several that are coming up. And so we'll get those scheduled so you can see them out there. We can only do one at a time. Can we schedule in advance? So we'll try and get it out there soon. Put it on your calendar. We'll be here next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Central. So until then, be willing. Start looking at it and don't get lost in that discard pile. That's all I have to say. Don't get lost in the discard pile. Keep your eye on the objective. That's right. All right, Mom. Bye, everyone.